Demolitions. But these demolitions were profiled. They only happened in low-income, in those areas where the low-income earners live, Madam Speaker. And this was under the guise of clearing riparian land, Madam Speaker. But go to places like Lavington. You will even see some river courses, Madam Speaker, interfered with in order for somebody to create room to erect buildings along, in fact, next to the river, not just on riparian land, but next to the river. There was no demolition happening there, while we were demolishing settlements of those of the poor, the poorest of the poor, Madam Speaker. And this is what has caused dissatisfaction, Madam Speaker. The law must be seen to be applied equally, Madam Speaker, to those that have and those that do not have, Madam Speaker. I'm surprised how time moves, how fast time moves. So, Madam Speaker, this is something that has caused a lot of problems with our people. Madam Speaker, the CSs have abandoned the president. None of them, very few of them, are helping the president in this crisis, Madam Speaker. We do not know what is happening. I've been wondering as a person, is it because maybe they did not appreciate that time when they went for the cabinet meeting late and they were locked outside the gate? Madam Speaker, maybe that cost them some demotivation, that maybe demoralized them, and I would want to ask the president, because he must rein in these CSs, but maybe to do it in a way in future that does not see them being ridiculed or see them looking like school children who came late to school, Madam Speaker. So we do not know whether they have the right morale, but this should be looked into. Needless to say of how they pretend, big people cannot answer calls from us. Some of them do not even honor our committee meetings. Madam Speaker, these are things that we need to think about. Madam Speaker, PSs. Do we need all these PSs? Those are questions that we need to ask ourselves, Madam Speaker. Do we need all of them? What is it that they do that cannot be done without them? Madam Speaker, because my time is running out, we need to rethink about CDF, especially the bursaries given by members of the National Assembly. Somebody raised a very pertinent question. Why do we need to give members of the National Assembly money to give to parents to pay to public schools? Why don't we channel those funds directly to these public schools, Madam Speaker? Maybe we can talk about CDF as far as development is concerned. That is something we can discuss. But really, we give members of parliament money to go, give back to government? I mean, what logic is there, Madam Speaker? I mean, we can use what we are calling means testing. Let us use means testing in order for us to assess the needs of every other student so that we send these funds directly to the institutions of learning. We do not have, and we have done very well with the new funding model at the university level. We can cascade these downwards to secondary schools, Madam Speaker. We should not just do the things the way they have been done all this time. And finally, I dare to say, this nation could be under a curse. Madam Speaker, I say that, and this is somehow spiritual.
4 things: housing jobs, digital jobs, export of labor, manufacturing. You believed barely 1.5 years ago that you could run the country on 2.9 trillion. In a few months, you went to Parliament and requested 3.6 trillion. This year, you went to Parliament and requested 4.2 trillion. And what do they see in return? They see extravagance in government, he was told. He replied, let me tell you the following. Today, universities were almost closed because of debts of 60 billion shillings. I have enhanced their budget by 40 billion shillings because education, to me, is the greatest equalizer. Speaker, this went on and on and on. Tone deaf and not answering what Kenyans really wanted to hear from the president. Not only were shots fired at innocent young protesters last week, Speaker, but it seems in this interview we also saw shots fired at his cabinet, his deputy president, and even the communications team caught astray. So what are some solutions? Speaker, in response to austerity measures as directed by this motion, the President has on record made pronouncements of what he plans to do. Young people do not want more dialogue or multi-sectoral groups before he actions what he has already committed to do. In his Wednesday, 26th of June press conference, the President committed to do the following. 1, reduce expenditure, starting with the Executive Office of the President and extending it to the entire executive arm of government. 2, operational expenditure in the presidency be reduced to remove all allocations for the confidential vote, reduce travel budgets, hospitality, and purchase all motor vehicles and renovations, as well as other expenditures. Number 3, Parliament, the judiciary, and county governments working with the National Treasury also undertake budget cuts. This clearly shows, Speaker, that the President knows exactly what he needs to do and precisely what he needs to focus on. Get rid of corruption, get rid of wastage, get rid of breaching court orders, get rid of misdirective and duplicative pots of money like CDF, which completely usurp the true function of a legislator. Speaker, members of Parliament are supposed to legislate and ministries are supposed to implement. No parliamentarian should have a CDF allocation because our role is simple: to represent, to oversight, and legislate. We have no business building markets and roads and hospitals. Get rid of CDF that bastardizes the role of a member of Parliament. We also want a repeal of other unconstitutional legislations since this government came into power. And we want leaders to be leaders, Speaker, not leaders to be dealers. However, to achieve all this, we also want to hear definitives and strategies, not broad, pie-in-the-sky pronouncements. By now, Speaker, we should already have heard how much he will reduce expenditure in his office. How much will you cut from your travel budget, your hospitality budget, from the purchasing of motor vehicles and renovations? Speaker, the President has economic advisors who work for him round the clock and should have crunched preliminary numbers for us to see by now. On Sunday, the 30th of June, he was asked on national TV again if he'll reduce his ministers and ministries, to which he replied, and I quote, "That is an area that we will have to look into because that is a reality that we will face." It clearly shows that the President needs to do. Speaker, for my second proposal, let's go to Article 152(1) of our Constitution. That the Cabinet consists only of A, the President, B, the Deputy President, C, the Attorney General, D, not fewer than 14 and not more than 22 Cabinet Secretaries. This means, Speaker, that our Constitution provides that the President can cut the number of ministries to 14 from the current 21, saving the country billions of shillings. The Constitution goes further to say in Article 152(5) that the President, A, may reassign a Cabinet Secretary, B, may dismiss a Cabinet Secretary, and C, shall dismiss a Cabinet Secretary if required to do so by a resolution. Sorry, not sorry, Mr. President, but wake up your Minister of Youth Affairs, because the youth are telling you that they are desperately underserved. Wake up your Minister for Interior, because too many poorly trained, trigger-happy police officers exist under his watch. Wake up your Minister for Labour, because young people are protesting in the streets due to a lack of equal opportunities. Wake up your Minister for Roads, because we're seeing the worst levels of carnage and needless deaths of young people than in any 10-year preceding his. Wake up your Minister for Trade and Industries, because from small innovators to entrepreneurs to industries, the ecosystem she is leading has become terribly unforgiving. If you already know what needs to be done, and the Constitution gives you the power to take action, Mr. President, cabinet secretaries must be sacked. My third proposal, in reaction to point number 1 in this motion, revolves around exercise of legislative powers. Speaker, why is it that the finance bill never makes it its way to the Senate for consideration? Our Constitution does not bar this upper house from jointly considering legislation, especially those with as much gravitas as a finance bill. To illustrate this, I want to go to Article 109(5) that says, a bill may be introduced by any member or committee of the relevant House of Parliament, but a money bill may only be introduced in National Assembly in accordance with Article 114. It simply says, Speaker, that a money bill may be introduced only in the National Assembly, but nowhere does it say that a money bill cannot also be considered in the Senate. Our Constitution only bars this House from introducing money bills.